Hi guys, welcome to the last episode of this series. Today we are going to wrap up what we did in the last 10 episodes. As I promised, it was zero-stack tutorial without any libraries, frameworks, web servers, etc. Only pure coding with the console that every operating system has. I hope that you found this helpful and useful. My goal was to show you that well-organized code is as valuable as knowledge about frameworks and other libraries. Having that skill, you'll be able to develop way more complex applications in the future that will be easy to maintain. Obviously, in this tutorial, we just barely scratched the surface, but let's make a last small code refactoring and the very last tour through our code base. So here we have our index.php file, which is relatively long, 400 lines. And we can easily say that at least two functions can be extracted to the separate file. One will be called menu. And that's the PHP file. And as you can Okay, so there we have our function. There are some errors, but we are going to fix them locally soon. Here we have also some errors. So once we extracted this code to a separate file, now we need to include this file. Now our VS Code shows us that we don't need this namespace in this file. Probably it was used only here. We need just local. What else do we need here? Just already added. We need this namespace. Let's make a space. Okay, so now we have this almost 290 lines long function in a separate file. So this file was trimmed by half already, and perform action seems to be a good candidate to be extracted to a separate file as well. And that file we are going to call game. So we can take perform action. That's for sure. Okay, we need a chess local namespace here as well. And I would say that the print board also belongs to game. And obviously we need to add this file to this index. Now we have those requirements for classes. In a small application like this one, that's maybe not a huge issue, but in the bigger applications, first of all, in some cases, we may not need to include all the classes we have. We can include them on demand. And if there will be hundreds of classes, we will have very, very long lists to maintain, which is obviously wrong. So we have in PHP something called autoloader, so we can add it here. So that's how the autoloader looks like. Here we register our anonymous function, and this anonymous function will receive a class name that we would like to include. Because we have the same class names as the files, so that's the one of the prongs keeping the code consistent. What we need to do, we already use namespaces, so that's the real name of the class, yeah, because class doesn't sit on the top of the hierarchy. It is inside of dwarf chess, and that's the class name. Here we have to take all the backslashes, convert them to slashes to make the file path correct. And as you can imagine, we have classes, but we don't have this structure yet. Yes, so what I need to do, I need to create a folder. Inside of this folder, I need to create another folder, which is called chess. Now I can move all these files to this folder. Here's a little bit different case, because we have dwarf utils. So dwarf folder is okay, but I need another folder, and those two classes can be moved. And having this done, we can remove all those requires. We have to still use namespaces because this is a completely different part, but we don't have all these requirements anymore. So let's save it and let's see if our application still works. Let's save it. Okay, so far so good. No, what else? This works. You can split it. You can see there's a new file. Okay. You can split it. It's okay. What also works? 223. Yeah, actually, it seems that everything is working correctly, so we can continue our code refactoring. I already showed you one of the ways how to handle some specific numbers. Here we have class constants to describe some kind of moves. There are pros and cons of this approach. I would like to show you one more. We have some values, some integer values we return from menu, but also from the perform action. Yeah, like value 100, 103. In the menu we have 1 and 100 as well. At the very bottom, here we have 102. So for now, they don't mean anything really. So we can use feature from the PHP, which is called enum. Enum is like a type with some values, and I will call it chess local error codes. Now here we have our namespace. Yeah, so it's a dwarf chess, and this is our enum, and we define this as a integer. I have this function, this enum already prepared, so let me paste its code. We have some values. They are called cases. We have exit, resign, made, pass, menu action with a message, incomplete game, menu action, and the board action. You can think about the enum as a kind of limited class, so we can define functions inside, but for example, magic functions are not available here, and this is done by purpose, so that's why we have this print function to return our value, but here we could use our toString. This is magic function. So here we have a few other functions. It's equals. We can use this for comparison, or less than, yeah, because we cannot compare even though we return integers. Comparison between those enums may not work as expected, so we can define our function, take a value. As you can see, they are very similar, even too similar. We take a value. This value can be of any type. We check if it's of our instance of our type. If so, then we can compare these values if it's the same value. If the provided value is not instance of our enum, it can be like an integer or string. So we take a value of our enum and we compare with the provided value. And the same we do with this less than comparison. So how we can implement this to our code? So first of all, we need to import this. We can also access to the classes using the full namespace, but having this namespace imported on the top makes life easier. So here we return exit. Here we return board action, which was 200. Return pass, yeah, because that was 100. And here we return menu action with a message. Okay, now let's go to game. Here we have a 100, which is also a pass. Now you can see I didn't import this namespace yet, so VS Code cannot help me with this. So now it works perfectly fine. So it's 1 of 3, again. And here we go. Design. And this code pass. If we would like to be even more precise in our definitions, so we expect string action to be string, and this function returns either our code or a string. Yeah, exactly like this. So now we have very precise definition of this function. So now let's go back to index.php, because now the result, and that's the tricky part, because when we designed our application, the result was one of the primitive values, like a string or integer. But now it can be either string returned by the menu, or it can be some enum. So it will be a complex structure. What we need to do here? We cannot compare our result, which can be enum, but can be also a string, with the value 100. So what we have to do, we need to we need to add this class as well. Okay, so we need to get our pass enum as a kind of object and check if it equals to result and do negation, right? So it is this condition. Now even if that will be a string, it doesn't matter because this is always an object. So let's go back to for a second here. Yeah, so we always know that one of the elements is always this enum. If we would like to do this in the opposite way, you would have to check first if the result is the instance of this enum and then do comparison. But I guess this way it's shorter. Yeah, so now this 100 disappeared and we know that we expect some pass code. We can add some more comments what this pass means, yeah, but this is way more descriptive than simple 100. Here we have a 100, so we need to return it as a pass. Here we check for the 100. Yeah, so we just copy and paste this one. So here we have similar to the previous one, 0 was our exit, right? So we just replace it by exit. Here we have more or equal to hundreds. So here we need check like this. Yeah, so we need to check if the result, if this board action, which is 200, is less than result. Here we check the result is numeric because previously we returned those numeric values, which is not a case, or at least not only a case. So now we need to check if the result is instance of our enum. If so, then we would like to erase this result. Here we shouldn't have our enum anymore because it should be erased here. But just in case, we can add some check like this. So we can replace this one. We check if the result is instance of our enum. If so, then we print its value. Yeah, so we do not print enum as itself. We take its value and we return this as a string. If it's not an instance of this enum, we print a result which is should be a string. So right now we don't have this meaningless integer values. We replace them by something that is easier to read for other developers. Also those conditions are easier to understand, right? Because now we know that we are looking for exit, we are again looking for some board action, and as usual, the last step is to verify our refactoring in console. So our application starts. Let's make this here. I've removed all players or games, so it's empty. It's also empty. And here, we created game created as well. Player 2. We have players. We have new player. And play the game. And the board doesn't work. So it means that we did something wrong. It was a very dummy mistake. It was not greater, but greater equals. So 200 belongs to boards, so that's why I had to add one more function, less or equal. It is very similar to less than. The difference is in this equal sign. So now we can test our application. Okay. Okay, now the two looks inside to play 5, correct? Export game, voila, we have export game, exit. So here we have our players, our board, nobody, no castling, current player identifier, yeah, there are game details, player 1, player 2, all the details that we have are in our local repository of the users, so everything seems to work perfectly fine. So remember that development is never-ending story. There is always something to improve, to fix, to add. And now we did testing manually in console. You can add some automatic tests for functions, but also I recommend experimenting and testing other solutions. You can find the code for this game in a Git repository, so you can enjoy in your spare time. So thanks for watching and see you in the next series.